shooting games. Games in which we can finally fulfill the American dream. They come in all shapes and sizes, but the thing that binds them together is a certain powerful object between the hands of our characters. Some games have quirky characters and environments to pull you away from reality, and others, for some reason, try to replicate the exact conditions of war. Nevertheless, these types of games are the most popular genre of games, and for good reason. The reason being, they trigger tons of juicy neuronal activation. There is nothing like coming back from a long day of work and relaxing to the sounds of your AK-47 raining down on your online enemies. In this episode, we are joined by our good old friends, serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. But I thought to myself,
let me add a little bit of spice to that.
And decided upon adding another little category. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to rating shooting games based on their neuronal activation. Starting us off is a tender and greatly marbleized cut of the shooting games genre, Battle Royales.
Fortnite.
A battle royale game, whether it was inspired by the book or not, is undoubtedly the most infectious type of shooting games. The excitement one gets from dropping, landing, shooting, and dying. Oh shit! All for that victory royale is simply unmatched.
Baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
The kind of games like your PUBG, Fortnite, Warzone, and Apex Legends all have unique ways of getting you hooked, but they play by the same rules. You start off with a ton of random people in some kind of flying object, usually a plane, but sometimes it's a flying bus, and then you decide a landing place, and of course, start looking for loot in that place. Hypothetically speaking, loot should increase your chances of survival, as the more you loot, the more likely you are to find better guns. However, as you do this, the area that you can survive in gets smaller and smaller to encourage as many murders as possible. Give or take 15 to 20 minutes, you are presented a winner at the end. Oh, you thought you could just win the game like that? Nope. It's not that easy. If you play Battle Royale games, be prepared to spend a long time rinsing and repeating the above steps. No way! Good placement though.
This is great banter.
Until you find yourself in that unique winning position. I'm gonna give Battle Royale games a very strong 8 out of 10 on the dopamine scales. Dopamine is all about regulating rewards and general motivation to do/complete a task. And there's just something about Battle Royale games that no matter how many times you've died, or how late in the night it is, the sight of seeing a victory royale on your screen is motivating enough to keep you hooked for hours. However, for that exact reason, I think the serotonin starts leaking out of your system the more you try and the more you fail. God damn it. So, Battle Royale games get a score on serotonin until you actually win a game, and that general feeling of happiness that serotonin is responsible for shoots up to an 11 out of 10. A very respectable score indeed. Now I think it's time to introduce our new category. Think of it as an extension to the dopamine score, as this category works heavily with this neurotransmitter and areas of the brain such as the basal ganglia and the prefrontal cortex. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the addiction score. Quite self-explanatory to be honest, but here we are going to look at the general replayability of the genre and answer the question that if this game was an illicit substance, how likely would it be for you to consume it on a regular basis? Addiction is of course a very serious topic, so be mindful that this is all for entertainment purposes only. So with all that said, Battle Royale games get a very high addiction score of 9 out of 10. They generally do a very good job of getting us to play for prolonged periods of time, while simultaneously draining us of serotonin throughout the day if we yet have not achieved a victory royale. Oh, for goodness sake. Rightio, let's move on to our next category of shooting games. And to do this, I ask you, what does Battlefield and Call of Duty have in common? Well, apart from depressing player numbers and innovative ways of grabbing your money, they in fact laid the hallmarks of casual FPS multiplayer shooting games. Of course, let's not forget, this cheeky franchise as well also played a massive role in the development of this genre. These games and many others are the place where you and your politically incorrect friends lay their verbal marks on innocent children online. For many of you, it was childhood, but for some of you who play the current edition of these games, it is all you really have, and that, my friend, is just plain unfiltered sadness. So really, what I'm going to do is to do 2 ratings, one for pre-Battle Pass casual multiplayer games and one for current Battle Pass riddled editions of these games. So for Dopamine, I'm going to give these pre-Battle Pass games a solid 9.5. I don't know about you, but the absolute grind to get all the camos, attachments, kill streaks, and of course, the holy max prestige, well, there is simply nothing in life that compares to this, I think. But then the Battle Pass had to go and ruin it slightly, and I just feel like the Battle Pass in these types of shooting games just doesn't slap as much. So, 7.5, the Battle Pass riddled games. Serotonin follows a similar trajectory, with kill streaks that back in the day felt just as difficult to get as they do satisfying to use, and this paired with the promise that not all matches would be filled with complete and utter grass avoiders, our general feelings of happiness would stay in the higher range. 8 out of 10. If you play nowadays, well, you can very much forget about taking that frown upside down. 4 out of 10. The thing that does stay quite even across the 2 worlds is the neuropreference score. Relatively low unless you're going for some kind of kill streak. Why can't I fucking... or playing search and destroy. To finish off with our casual FPS multiplayer games, I would say that they both score 5 out of 10 on addiction levels. Because to score higher than a 5, you either must be addicted to waiting hours for a single game or a masochist. Yeah. To play the next genre of shooting games, you have to upgrade from just a casual player to a more seasoned vet. The reason for this is because this category holds games like CSGO and Rainbow Six Siege. These multiplayer first-person shooters differ from the previous category, as they require quite a bit of extra skill and knowledge about the game's mechanics. This means that the barriers to entry are much higher, but the potential rewards you may reap from your countless hours in these games perhaps supersede any category of shooting games we mentioned in this video. Both serotonin and dopamine, for that matter, are at a very decent level, and learning the ins and outs of each character, gun, and map can be very addictive if you're willing to put the effort in. As for neuropreference, oh no. Anyways, our next category moves away from the land of multiplayer and even in some cases, the first person. Games like your Fallouts, Borderlands, Far Cry's, Hitmans, and even your Sniper Elites. Which, by the way, I've made videos on both of those games, so check them out in the description. They all have an element of exploration and completing some kind of task. In these games, the emphasis shifts from countless murders like in the multiplayer games and more to following a certain narrative.
Thanks! I'll pre-order your tombstone just in case.
Well, of course that narrative is also murdering many people with your gun, but you get what I'm saying. On the lower difficulties, dying isn't too big of a deal, as you can just respawn at a recent checkpoint. So these games would score a nice low 4 out of 10 on a neuropreference score. It would be lower, but I know most of you, myself included, somehow challenge ourselves to extremely stressful tasks in these games.
I like my games to be hard. Can you beat Fallout 4 if every enemy is legendary?
Dopamine scores on these games are quite good, as hunting for loot or perfecting the ultimate silent kill is concerningly motivating. Serotonin, on the other hand,
it's the biggest piece of dog shit.
As you may find yourself repeating the same thing over and over again. With that said though, our addiction score is quite high, as these games just seem to get us coming back to them again and again, with massive gaps in between obviously. Our final category spans a large domain of arcadey-like shooters. A game like Deathloop or Doom would be a great example. In this category, you would tend to find games that twist movement mechanics, environments, and even the weapons you hold, all in the goal to make you experience a unique form of terminating your enemies. In Doom, for example, the movement is super fluid, fast, and really rewarding when you start to master your craft. In general though, arcade shooter games all have their unique way of keeping you hooked, but one of the great things they do is keep the barriers to entry low, but develop the game so that you are very much rewarded for trying out cool and interesting ways to beat the levels on missions. That is very kind of arcade shooters, so for keeping us on our toes and providing an outlet to your typical shooter, I'm gonna give them a very nice score on both dopamine and serotonin. For neuroperephrine, I personally find these types of shooters very chill, so if I'm not looking to be verbally abused by grown men online,
Sit down! Nobody talk! Sit down!
these games would be a very good choice as their stress score is quite low. To finish things off, we have our addiction score, and this is where, ladies and gentlemen, I leave you for the next few months so I can become the next best player on Doom. Before I go hibernate, it must be said that by no means is this a comprehensive overview of every shooting game out there. Many games have been mentioned, but many have not. So like in the last video, I encourage you to make your own neuron activation scales in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed this video, why not give it a like? And make sure to subscribe because there are some very big videos coming your way and you definitely don't want to miss them.